Welcome everyone back to another episode of Market Talk, where we have Bob the broker from Silex Financial, Joe Valenti from Tabachak Law, and my business partner Jeffrey Kalafut. Welcome everyone back to another episode. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks as always. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So December, let's talk about the market. What's going on interest rates wise? Why is everybody losing their hair? Because every single deal is an absolute nightmare. And we can share all some insights on that. So, Bob, do you want to start it off with some mortgage information?
Yeah, mortgage rates have trickled down a little bit into the mid sixes, I would say, on a 30-year fix. I think the forecasts for next year have changed a bit, where most people were and organizations were saying fives, 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 and all of a sudden we're seeing them come out with low sixes, slower to go down lower. Which they might be correct. Who knows at this point? I mean, it does seem like we are headed that way, a little lower, but not the fives as quick as we thought they would be.
Hmm. For sure. I think things are projecting 2025. And Jeff and I were on a meeting. I think it was at the end of 2025, possibly like six and a
It was
half, a little
six
lower
and
than
yeah,
six
six
and
and
a
a
half.
like a six and a quarter, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, everybody thought with the new president, and I'm not getting political, but the new president rates would come right down, and they actually kind of jumped after the election up a little bit, and they're starting to trickle down a little bit now. So. Um, But who knows? We'll see what happens. The inflationary issues haven't changed much. The job markets are still pretty strong, which is why the Fed is everyone thinks the Fed is going to slow up on cuts, and so we need some if we want to see lower rates. We like doom and gloom in the mortgage business. We need to see some negative job reports, negative economy reports, which
mhm.
I don't know if we want to see that either. So
Yeah. Jeff, what are you seeing transaction wise? Is it still, a battle right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now some of the buyers that I'm working with, I mean, multiple offer scenarios are still happening on certain properties. We say it time and time again, our market area is just a little bit of a different dynamic than across the country. This northern New Jersey market is different. It's a different animal. The house we're under contract with right now, it's not without its issues though. The
Mhm.
appraisal came in, the first one came in low, like really low. So we went back and we're getting a reevaluation, and actually the second appraisal is going to be done today. So
Mm.
hopefully it brings us closer to where we are. Now I think our offer price is a little higher, and we knew that. We built that into our offer. We gave a $20,000 gap coverage, but um, you know, in a highly competitive market, very unique home, if specific buyers are looking for this property, you're going to have to get aggressive.
Mhm.
I think, generally speaking, though, we're seeing a little bit more days on market
Mhm.
across. I mean, but I think that has to do with the seasonality of things more than anything. Holidays, from Thanksgiving through New Year's Day, we all know that this is typically a time that slows down a little bit. That being said, I think I'm busier than I expected to be, which is
Mhm.
a good thing. It's a good indicator for the coming year. Listing wise, I think I have like 7 or 8 listings that are going to be coming on the market in the next couple months that I know of already, which is a good thing versus last year where I was like, okay, I have 1 or 2 things that I know is going on. Like this is getting a little freaky. What's gonna happen here?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it obviously still is a battle. I just had a client, we looked at a house and we did it was like 2 days high, they were highest and best. First they had first round they had five offers, then they were at 10 offers, and then at 10 offers the agent was like, hey, just give you an FYI, we're already over 100K on list
Right.
price. Over 100K, 10 offers. Um, and it was listed for 709. There was a updated cape on the around the corner that it sold at 985.
Wow.
985. That's insane.
crazy.
Insane. Um, so yeah, it's still multiple offer situations on in certain pockets still in New Jersey.
Right. Right.
You
It's
guys
certain
think that
properties, certain areas.
Yeah.
you guys think that the seasonality of this business has changed? That it's no longer as seasonal as it used to be?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
there's no doubt.
there's no doubt because there's so many buyers still primed and ready to go. Like they are just waiting for a pin to drop that, the house hits their criteria in the location and they're ready to go.
Right. I
Um,
mean, the buyers that I have under contract right now, same thing. Like these, they're first time home buyers, but I've been in communication with them for the past, I don't know, I think we looked at the first house like 3 years ago, you know. Not that we looked at a lot, because again, they're looking for something very specific, which I like because they knew what they wanted. So that when this house hit, like we knew, like, very rarely will I say this house is the house for somebody. This house was the house for them. Like it,
mhm.
it checked off every box and then some.
Yeah.
So, but it also did the same thing for other people, which brought in those multiple offers.
Yeah. So Joe is always in the trenches on every transaction. He needs armor every time he goes to work and sometimes a helmet.
It's
So
been it by far has been the most difficult 12 to 18 months of my career. It's not even close.
really, wow. So why do you think that is?
It's a combination of factors from my end. I think it's a melding of buyers and sellers are it's just hard to quantify this, but they're just definitely more difficult, less agreement
Mhm.
based than ever before. I mean, I don't know if that's a people shift in our culture or what's going on. So that you have some of that. There's definitely also, and Bob can attest to this a little bit more. I practice in New York City as well. I'm having more issues with lenders clearing, especially condo situations,
Mm.
HOA. It's becoming more of a grind. I'm becoming everly more involved, which is fine, but becoming everly more involved in that process, getting that over the hump, meeting timelines. So it's a combination of those two factors, and then I think the third overriding factor is just the fatigue on everybody in general.
Yeah,
Um, everybody from the attorneys to the brokers to the title companies to the lenders, everybody's just beat up right now.
right.
So in terms of deal flow, though, what I will say is I did a little inventory a couple weeks ago. I'm like almost 2.3 times as many transactions in flow than last year.
Mm,
So we definitely have a much busier active market. With that active market comes more problems naturally, but the prognosis, the forecast, whatever you want to call it, for 2025 is definitely looking sunnier than last year for sure.
yeah. I think I agree with you. I think everyone is just thin-skinned right now. Everyone's worn out. So
Yeah,
as soon as one thing goes wrong, everything
right.
triggers. It's like a war.
It's very hard to diffuse when you get a piece of information that somebody gets excited about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I think you
We
have buyer fatigue, you have
Mhm,
seller expectations
Yeah.
based on the previous few years and not current matters, and then you have agents that are just stressed beyond belief. I mean, there's a statistic that I was in a seminar the other day. Was it 47% of all real estate agents did not close one deal this year?
Wow.
Wow, that's pretty.
47%. When you're talking about almost half of our population not closing a deal, and that's not for lack of trying, some of them probably just left or referred, whatever, but others are writing offers, they're running around, and they're getting zero return.
yeah.
I guess the
So,
question would be, what do you think past years, what that percentage is? How big of a jump is that? Because there's always your part-time agents.
Mhm.
Um,
right.
so what do you think? Do you think that's a huge jump from years
It
past?
is. It is. I'm not sure what the exact number was from the previous year, but it was a significant jump. It's the highest it's ever been. And quite honestly, I think it has a lot to do with the current market conditions that we've been battling with the last few years,
Mhm.
combined with the new changes, in the rulings that we have to follow. Um, if you're not led by the right group of people, some of these agents out there, unfortunately, are left kind of hanging and they're clueless on how to operate,
Mhm.
which, we see on our end when we get offers coming in or we're talking to people and they just completely wrong on how to handle certain things.
Yeah.
I I'm in some social media mortgage broker groups, and there's a lot of discussions lately about what are you doing on the side? What where are you headed? What kind of different jobs are you taking? I
Yeah.
am interested once the new year comes to see. I think that the people who re-up their licenses, in our side of the industry is going to be there's going to be a lot of people who decided not to.
Mhm.
It's a very good point because when the year ends, you kind of compare your financials from year to year. And gonna be a lot of people that say, man, this is just not worth it for me. The amount of time I'm putting in versus the rate of return. You're
Right.
gonna see a lot of less professionals in the sector of real estate.
Yeah, I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. And I mean, and I don't want to say, I don't want to sound cruel, but I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, I think the people that are going to survive are the ones that like us have been just, you know, pounding the pavement and just really going out there and, you know, doing things the right way. And there's a lot of us out there that do that, you know, but some of those people came into the industry thinking it's going to be easy money, you know.
It is no longer an industry to make a quick buck in.
No,
You have to
no.
you have to get your feet cemented, dig in, and get, like Jay said, get ready for battle.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's just the reality of our industry right now. You know, you have to have thick skin. You have to be able to, you know, problem solve like no other in this market right now.
Yeah. And navigate 10 steps ahead, right? Like,
Right.
you're yeah,
You
you
have to
gotta
anticipate every move.
yep. Um, but yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a part of natural selection and also quality control in the industry. The
Hmm.
strong will survive in this. And yeah, it's not easy by any means.
Now, on to piggyback on that though, which a statistic that, you know, a meeting Jay and I were just in, and I was in something else previously this week, only 6% of sales last year were for sale by owners, which is the lowest it's ever been.
Wow.
6%. And out of that 6%, 4% had a connection with that person, whether it was a family, a friend, something like
Wow.
that. So, you know, while it's more difficult and challenging to get through this, more people out there are seeing the value in using us to make sure that transaction goes the way it's supposed to go, which is, you know, I think is great news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Interesting.
definitely.
I didn't hear that. That's interesting numbers.
Yeah. We also were on a call, like consumer debt is at record levels at $13 trillion in mortgage debt. But also another interesting fact is that there is $35 trillion in equity in the properties that are mortgaged. So that's huge. So on average, a 309 $319,000 of equity on average in each household right now.
Which
That is
is
why so
insane.
many of my lenders are pushing home equity loans for 2025.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And
They know
then
that people don't want to get rid of their 3% rate, but they want to tap into that home equity to pay off their debts.
absolutely.
yeah. And then also the theory that all these foreclosures are going to come down the pipe. But I mean, there's only 1% of serious mortgage delinquency right now in the country.
Hmm.
1%. Um, and I think too is that if people understand how much equity they have in their house right now, they have an option to, get out or, still be able to walk away with something with that before it gets too serious if they
Right. That's
catch it in time.
we've discussed this before. A lot of people wait till it's too late,
Yeah.
you know, and they don't understand the dynamics of how things work. So
Mhm.
they might think that, oh man, I'm in trouble, but they don't. What they don't know is that their house isn't worth what they thought it was worth 10 years ago. It's worth way more. So, you
Mhm.
know, that's where they have to call us and evaluate the situation.
Yeah. Have you guys seen how were the new changes with the new NAR settlement and stuff like that? Any hiccups or anything like that? Are you still guys firing all cylinders, just some more paperwork?
You got to be extremely careful, especially from my end of things. There's a lot of like little tricky things that are being done. And I always got to go to paragraph 30 of the Jersey Standard Form. And that's the first thing I do when I get a contract now. And to be honest, I never did that for, until this new laws were in place. You got to see what the buyer's agent is getting paid by the seller immediately. You need to know versus what they're expecting to get. Because
Hmm.
guess what? If those numbers don't match up, you have a problem when it comes time to close. So
Yeah.
that's immediately what I'm doing. I'm calling the broker saying, hey, what are you supposed to get in this deal? Make sure the numbers match the standard form because that's not something that gets negotiated in attorney review. It very rarely comes up.
Right. Because it usually is agreed upon as the contract comes
Yeah.
over and both parties sign. That's
But
the
I'm seeing a lot where the buyer signs an agreement with the buyer's agent saying the buyer's agent will get 3% or 2.5%. You go to the standard form, it only says 2%. Okay, guys,
Mhm.
like where's this magical 1% coming from? We got to figure this out.
Right.
Right. Because I mean, does the buyer's agreement really should it even come across your desk? It should just be in the contract.
Right. The thing is, it doesn't come across my desk, so I got to kind of just information gather.
I
Yeah,
haven't
I got to
seen
make
it
sure
in the
those things matter.
contract at all. I haven't seen a buyer's agreement come through in the
yeah.
contract at all.
I don't think you actually should see it. I think it's whatever's in the actual contract
Correct.
Right.
should supersede that.
Well,
And
it does supersede it. That's the problem. Those things need to match, or else you're going to have angry people at the closing.
Right. Yeah, so I agree with you that the agent, whatever is going to be on that contract, needs to sign another
Yeah.
buyer's agency agreement that matches that contract when that
Correct.
contract goes over.
Correct. Yeah. And I'm not saying there's a lot of bad faith going on in this, but I have seen a couple times where numerous negotiations of the standard form, various rounds of modifications before it gets released to me, and that initial number does not match the final version coming to me. So I don't know if there's a lot of little
Mhm.
gamesmanship there,
Yeah.
where you're sliding it in. I don't know. I've seen it though. It
Interesting.
raises my alarm bells. Like, why is this number different than the original one with no emails about that amount? So
Interesting.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
tell you on our end, there's some added steps, but it's been business as usual. Very few contracts have come my way where the buyer is paying the agent.
correct.
Right.
I had a couple where they pay him a little bit on top of what the seller's paying. But other than that, it has been business as usual. The lenders require that one step of putting in who's paying the commissions up front, where they used to not really ask that.
Right.
But that's it.
Yeah.
Other than phone calls from agents that I get when negotiating what their options are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely very few buyers paying full commissions. It's usually like a 0.5 or a percentage, small percentage amount.
Mhm.
That's what one of my transactions right now. I mean, the seller initially wasn't offering anything. We negotiated that to 1.5, and my buyer agreement with the clients was obviously different than that. So my buyers are paying a smaller percentage on the back end to
Right.
compensate me. And the conversation was easy, and they actually said that they wanted to pay me the full amount. They had no problem with it. So
That's great.
which was good to hear.
Yeah. I think, I think the sellers understand that volume of people through the door is going to get them more money than paying the buyer's agency commission. Like it's always been that way.
Yep.
And that's why the market will take care of itself as well. Like as much regulations and government overreach, in my opinion, get involved, the market is still the market. People don't work for free. People want professionals to represent them, to give them the highest opportunity to collect the highest margins on a property that they're listing and navigate it as good as as best as possible. So, um, yeah, yeah, haven't seen much of a change in my opinion when it comes to that. Um, So expired listings as well. We haven't seen many expired listings. It's coming to the end of the year where there could be a bump in expired listings. In our market area, I don't foresee a ton of expired listings unless there's a seller that was really reaching with an extremely unrealistic price. And
Right. And we've seen a few of those where you see it
yeah,
listed and you're like, that's way off base. They're going to be sitting, and that's what happens.
yeah,
Again, that's unrealistic seller expectations based on what we dealt with during the COVID era of home sales.
right.
You
Just
know,
it's worth 2 million. It's a
right.
$300,000 house.
Right.
2 mil
Right.
for sure. Um, but yeah, any tidbits or anything you guys want to add that we didn't touch on?
No, I would just go back to what Joe started to talk about a little bit. Is condos have just become really, really difficult. They're an issue. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have really tightened their guidelines on condos, and the management companies aren't answering the questions the way they should be,
Hmm.
and it's just a constant battle.
Yep.
Yeah,
I had an issue with just that very recently, and in the middle of everything, they changed management companies, which made it even more complicated. I mean,
Yeah,
we didn't even know who to contact after a
That's
while.
tough.
It was a nightmare.
yeah,
It was a nightmare. It took months to close that property
yeah.
when
Look, I mean,
you shouldn't have.
people get angry. It takes us. So just so you know, I mean, it takes us 2-3 weeks to get the condo questionnaire back.
Right.
And then, so you're almost to the finish line. Everybody thinks everything's great. And then the condo questionnaire comes back and there's an issue. And everyone's like, well, why did we find out? It takes so long to find out. Well, I mean, I can't get them fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
it's just been a struggle.
Yeah. I mean, HOAs and condo associations have never, I don't think they've ever been favorable for any process, but it's definitely been a grind for
It's
sure.
gotten way worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's gotten way worse.
And especially if the HOA is poorly managed.
Right.
It's tough. It is.
Which I hate to say this, but I feel like most of them are.
Yeah.
So these big management companies who they handle dozens, if not hundreds of companies across the country. And there's like one person that you can talk to and they're completely incompetent most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're also just like, they have too much to handle. They can't
Oh
physically
yeah, they're overworked.
handle
They
everything.
don't, no doubt.
Yeah.
And they're scared to answer questions for liability. reasons. So that makes it more difficult.
Right.
Yep. Especially if there's a special assessment going on. What do those numbers look like? Because you need those numbers. You need those estimates
Yeah.
to.
You get a lot of, we're contemplating it, but not sure. And then 2 weeks after closing, there's like a bombshell assessment. And you're like, what is the point of this exercise sometimes, you know? But it's like what Bob said. They don't want to throw a number out because if it doesn't match up, you're going to come back to them after closing saying, what's going on?
Right.
Mhm. Fun stuff.
Crazy.
fellas.
A couple things a couple things I thought, everybody here might find interesting too. Again, for one of my recent seminars, last year, 26% of all purchases were cash, which that's huge, right?
Yeah.
So that's what, when you're dealing with a
Yeah.
quarter of the sales, bags of money being sent back and forth, it's kind of crazy.
I got to
That's the
check under
highest
my
it's ever been.
mattress.
That's the highest it's ever been. And we see it in our market though. How many times we've seen like, and I'm not talking about different products that have the cash offer. Like this is true cash. My bank account has this X amount of dollars and that's how I'm buying the house.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to go out on a limb and say that some of that cash is because people sold their homes, were living with family or friends for a while, had that equity in their account and were able to pay cash.
Mhm.
But, I've seen plenty of cash deals come across my desk over this past year, which has been crazy. And then to go back to the buyers I'm currently working with under contract, they're first time home buyers and they're younger, but the average first time home buyer now is 38 years old, which is an all time high.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how old you guys all were when you bought your first house, but I had two before I was 38.
Yeah. That's a high number.
Yeah, that's
You
high.
know, it's astounding. So how are these younger, these young, I say kids, these younger 20-year-olds coming out of college with all this debt? They're going to be renting forever unless something changes.
Well, I also find though that that age group is more willing to live at home longer.
Mhm.
Whereas, I know I'm older than you guys, but when I got out of college, the last thing I wanted to do was move home. And I always joke around, but it's true. I get calls from parents. Hey, I'm tired of my kid living in my basement. Look, I love my kid, but I want him out. So what can I do to get him pre-approved?
Yeah.
So I get those calls a lot where I never used to.
Right. I mean, if you have a 38-year-old living in your basement, you're going to get those calls.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm praying that's not the case for my kids.
Yeah.
Love them, but get out.
Yeah,
Get out.
That's exactly that's the call. I love my kid. Get out. It's time.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's
It's
crazy.
tough.
And along with that too, 17% were multi-generational purchases. So, families buying together.
Mhm.
So it's like one aspect people want them out. The next they're combining forces and they're buying a house together. I actually have something like that coming up. I'm selling 2 homes and they're buying one together. That's going to be, I'm putting that house on the market hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So
Yeah.
there's crazy dynamics right now to make things happen.
Yeah. People have to get creative and
Yeah.
join forces.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not easy. Anything else, gentlemen?
No. Happy holidays, guys.
Yeah, happy holidays. This is probably our last market talk until the new year,
2025. Yeah.
2025. We'll see. we'll see what happens. Hopefully 2025 is a better year. I definitely do think there's going to be a higher volume of home sales compared to the what 4 million. What was it this year?
Yeah, it was like 4.5 million, I think, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, hopefully we'll hit 5 and keep going up.
As long as the drones don't take us all away, we'll be fine.
Yeah, the drones.
Yeah, that's just a joke. Jeez.
We
That's
can
a
talk
whole
for another hour about that.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Right.
That's a whole nother podcast. So we'll see. But awesome guys. Thank you again
you
for
all.
jumping on here.
Thanks, guys.
And I hope you guys have a great holiday and happy new year. And we'll see everyone in 2025.
Looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
next time.
Take care,
All
guys.
right, guys.